Greetings from Runnymede United Church. This is the second in a weekly series on Psalms entitled Psalms of Hope and Assurance. Today's psalm is part of a collection of Psalms 120 to 134 that are sometimes called Psalms of Ascent or Pilgrimage. These psalms, much like folk songs, were used by the people of Israel as they journeyed on foot each year to Jerusalem to celebrate the Passover, a remembrance of how God had freed the Hebrew people from slavery in Egypt. They would sing these psalms as they walked along on their journey to pass the time, but also to remind them that the purpose of their journey was to eventually reach Jerusalem where they would worship God. They are called Psalms of Ascent because Jerusalem with its temple stood at the top of the highest series of mountains. Even today in Jerusalem, the place the temple stood on is referred to as the Temple Mount. It was also believed to be the place where Abraham went to offer his son Isaac as a sacrifice, but instead set up an altar and offered a lamb. The pilgrims would ascend the mountain paths until at last they could look across a valley and see Jerusalem on the last mountaintop. It is thought that Psalm 121 was used as the pilgrims actually reached the temple itself. Most likely, the first verses of this great psalm were used like a responsive reading, with the opening question, you'll hear in a moment, coming from the pilgrims themselves, and the response, an affirmation in return from the temple choir. The people of Israel faced much hardship and uncertainty. Psalm 121 is an assurance that whatever happens, God is with us in this life and beyond. Psalm 121. I lift up my eyes unto the hills. From where will my help come? My help comes from the Lord who made heaven and earth. He will not let your foot be moved. He who keeps you will not slumber. He who keeps Israel shall neither slumber nor sleep. The Lord is your keeper. The Lord is your shade upon your right hand. The sun shall not strike you by day, nor the moon by night. The Lord will keep you from all evil. He will keep your life. The Lord will keep your going out and your coming in from this time on and forevermore. Not an unreasonable question in times of uncertainty. From where does my help come? The answer returns from the Lord. Verse 4 says, He who keeps you will neither slumber nor sleep. As is now, there were many then who believed that if there was a God, God was not active. God was benign, a God who was seemingly asleep. But not so, affirms this great psalm. This is an affirmation that God is present and at work in our lives and in our world. The psalm uses images from the pilgrimage to underline and remind us about the power of God's help and presence. He, God, will not let your foot be moved, says the psalm. There were no roads. The pilgrims made their way through the mountains, following the narrow and steep paths used by shepherds to move their lambs and goats to pasture. You had to really watch your step. One misplaced foot, and you would tumble hundreds of feet down the rocky mountain. And then there's the line, the Lord is your shade at your right hand. The sun shall not strike you by day, nor the moon by night. On the journey to Jerusalem, they faced two major concerns, the heat and sun of the day, and the cold of the night. Night was also the most terrifying part of the journey, with fear of being attacked by bandits under the cover of darkness. This powerful God is with us. This God is with us in all things. Are you familiar with the story of Cain and Abel, the firstborn of Adam and Eve? Two brothers, Cain a farmer and Abel a shepherd, make a sacrifice to God. For whatever reason, God prefers Abel's sacrifice, and in a rage of envy, Cain kills his brother. God asks Cain where his brother is, and Cain weaves in Abel's profession as a keeper of animals and says, Am I my brother's keeper? which having murdered him, is clear he did not think he was his brother's keeper. Psalm 121 closes with its own spin on that line about being one's keeper. The Lord will keep you from all evil. He will keep your life. The Lord will keep your going out and your coming in from this time on and forevermore. The Lord is our keeper. I grew up in the United Church using the old blue hymn book, the Hymnary. It was produced in the early 1930s in cooperation with the Convention Baptists. At the back of that hymn book were the responsive psalms and readings, and they were all identified, if some of you will remember, by Roman numerals. These psalms were paraphrases based on the old Scottish Psalter, prose quite similar to that of the King James Version. I'm going to end by reading Psalm 121 from that old hymnary. I will lift up my eyes unto the hills. From whence cometh my help? My help cometh from the Lord, which made heaven and earth. He will not suffer thy foot to be moved. He that keepeth thee will not slumber. Behold, he that keepeth Israel shall neither slumber nor sleep. The Lord is thy keeper. The Lord is thy shade upon thy right hand. The sun shall not smite thee by day, nor the moon by night. The Lord shall preserve thee from all evil. He shall preserve thy soul. The Lord shall preserve thy going out and thy coming in from this time forth and even forevermore. Beautiful prose that contain that hope and assurance that God is with us. God is our keeper. God is our helper. God bless. Amen.